I now give the floor to Her Excellency Caterina Colonna, Minister of Europe and Foreign Affairs of France.
Monsieur le Président de l'Assemblée Générale,
Distinguished President of the General Assembly, distinguished heads of state and government, distinguished ministers, distinguished ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for me to speak on behalf of France before you. I'm doing so in knowing how much our common assembly, this assembly of all nations, have decided to freely join their destinies and act for the common good. I speak before you in this spirit, in the spirit of those who, almost 80 years ago, sought to build on the ashes of the previous world to bring interesting relations into a new era, an era in which all of us understand that while defending our own interests, we must abide by common principles, an era in which we all understand that those who are mighty today may be weak tomorrow, where the enemies of yesterday could be the friends of today. That is the path that France and Germany took, an era when power is governed by law, when the common challenges of humanity are at last taken on collectively instead of along the lines of every man for himself. It's what we learned to do in Europe when we overcame centuries of conflict through cooperation and trust. It is this quest for the common good, the spirit of the UN, that guides France's international action, the spirit of a power that is confident in its principles, compassionate, and always willing to act collectively for the common good. What are our principles? They are the principles that this Assembly reaffirmed by a vast majority when it condemned the Russian aggression against Ukraine 3 times now already. Nothing can morally or legally ever justify the invasion of a neighboring state, to attempt to annex territory through underhanded maneuvers and martyrize the population. France defends these simple principles of equality between states, respect for the territorial integrity and their sovereignty. These are principles that no one should compromise. France also defends the principle of food security. Who could believe, despite the confusion and propaganda that some are wantonly disseminating, that the party that is destroying grains and grain silos has the least bit of interest in global food security, of which it itself is the enemy? What we see here is the expression of pure brutality that would stoop to using any weapon, even hunger, to try to revive its imperialist illusions. Against this, others, such as France, are acting. We are acting by financing WFP deliveries to the most fragile countries. We're acting by facilitating the export of Ukrainian grains through EU solidarity corridors. We're acting by financing throughout the world ambitious programs for developing local agriculture and to support school lunch programs. France also defends the principle of the inviolability of the historic heritage of nations, this heritage of humanity's cultures in Mosul and Timbuktu yesterday, and in Odessa and Lviv today. Indeed, everywhere, France supports the actions of those who defend the historic treasures of their countries, which hate threatens to destroy. Lastly, and of course, France supports the fight against impunity. We support the ICC everywhere in the Sahel to bring to justice the jihadis that France had defeated yesterday and which today once again threaten an entire region, as well as in Ukraine, of course, where crimes against humanity are committed on a daily basis against the population. What is happening in Ukraine concerns all of us. If we allow our common principles to be trampled there, they will be trampled everywhere. If we let this aggression be rewarded, other instances will occur there or elsewhere. Ladies and gentlemen, The Russian war of aggression is also a blow against the most vulnerable countries. It imposes upon us all today a duty of solidarity. Last year, France became the fourth largest donor, joining three friendly powers, the US, Japan, and Germany. This is the result of patient investment, which I am proud to present to you. France stands with those who are threatened by hunger, as evinced by the appeal a few days ago to protect agricultural infrastructure, the massive increase of our food aid, which has reached almost 1 billion euros now, and which benefits 67 countries, including Nigeria and Sudan newly this week, as well as our hosting of the Coalition for School Meal Programs in Paris on October 18th and 19th, and the replenishment meeting of the International Fund for Agricultural Development in December, with the goal of raising $2 billion. Our action for solidarity also clearly aims to allow for access of all to financing needed to combat poverty and carry out energy transitions in the long line of the ambitious UN agenda to attain the SDGs. The President of the French Republic has taken the initiative, therefore, to hold a summit on a new financial pact, a global pact which took place in Paris on June 22nd, 23rd, and which allowed us to outline a plan to increase public and private financing commensurate with the challenges of international solidarity. This summit led to immediate positive outcomes, such as the signing of a partnership for energy transition in Senegal, or JET-P, as well as an agreement reached on Zambian debt. These are pledges which France has worked toward for years, and they were upheld. That is the case, for example, with regard to the reallocation of $100 billion in special drawing rights. The Paris Pact for Peoples and the Planet, which stemmed from this summit at the end of June, lays out clear principles to tackle head-on and simultaneously the challenges of poverty, climate change, and biodiversity loss, ensuring that no country is forced to choose between these goals. I call on all states that have not yet done so to endorse this pact. Our action for solidarity is also that of a country that has exceeded by more than 1 billion euros its financial pledges on climate, allocating 7.6 billion euros last year. It is the action of a country that continues to work tirelessly to protect the lungs of our planet. In June 2025, France will be hosting the UN Conference on the Ocean, which it will co-organize with Costa Rica in order to maximize the protection of this crucial carbon sink, the ocean. I'm counting on your support and your support for our commitment to protect forests and to build partnerships to conserve forests. Our action for solidarity is also that of a country that will always be committed to promoting and defending human rights. This December, we will celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Paris and in Geneva. This will be a moment to pay tribute to all those who are fighting to defend rights and freedoms, to protect human dignity, rights to which all of us aspire throughout the world. I'm thinking as well of the rights of women, especially in Afghanistan, where women are repressed because of their gender by a Taliban regime that sadly has placed a policy of segregation and violence against women at the heart of its political identity. Our solidarity also goes out to all those who risk their lives for others. For example, the Blue Helmets and the 116 humanitarian workers who have been killed, those who were injured and abducted last year. We must better protect them, and France stands entirely by their side, as said this week, together with our humanitarian partners. Based on these principles, France will always be willing to engage in collective action for the common good. Concerning the climate, today we're seeing that our lack of ambition can lead to disasters. Storms, fires, floods have all marked this year throughout the world that have killed tens of thousands. The latest IPCC report and the stock taking implemented before the COP28 ought to alarm us. We cannot turn away from this. We must, on the contrary, act rapidly and collectively to address these common challenges which spare no nation. It is urgent, but it is possible. To do so, we have a method, a tried and true method that has led us to results in the past. The method of the Montreal Protocol, which allowed us to resolve the ozone layer issue. The method that we used to arrive at the Paris Agreement in 2015 together. It is the method that ought to ensure that the BBNJ Treaty can enter into effect as soon as possible, to protect marine areas, as well as to attain the ambitious goals of the Kunming-Montreal Agreement on Biodiversity. And we hope there will be a legally binding agreement adopted to eliminate plastic pollution. This method is the only one that allows us to go beyond awareness and to act with resolve, commitment, and responsibility. It is called multilateralism. In light of climate destruction, the devastation of our natural habitat, the depletion of our biodiversity, you can count on France to take initiatives. The multilateral method is also the method that will allow us to resolve proliferating international crises. In Nagorno-Karabakh, the international community ought to ensure that a population that has suffered 9 months of a merciless blockade, which has seen a campaign of bombing and destruction, can at last see its rights and security guaranteed. Orders imposed upon a besieged civilian population cannot be a solution, and the threats against Armenia itself and encroachment on its territory already documented must end. In Africa, we believe in African solutions to African problems, and we support African regional organizations whenever they ask for our support. We do so in Niger, where France supports ECOWAS in its efforts to restore constitutional order, which has been threatened by force since the democratically elected president, Mohamed Bazoum, has been dealing with an attempted coup. In Sudan, a deadly war has been raging for over 5 months. Civilians are the primary victims of this heinous conflict. It is our duty as the international community to continue unflaggingly to seek solutions for peace. We once again urge the belligerents to cease hostilities and to spare civilians, to permit a humanitarian ceasefire, and to generate an inclusive political solution. Nor can we tolerate the conflict in the east of the DRC, which for so long has been based on the same grounds and caused the same casualties. There as well, France supports regional mechanisms for conflict resolution to facilitate a negotiated and peaceful solution. France is and remains a reliable and faithful ally of African regional organizations when they fight for peace, development, democracy, and the security of the continent. In a Middle East that is redrawing itself, France is also playing its role by staunchly supporting dialogue and cooperation. We continue to take part, on the invitation of our partner Iraq, in the Baghdad process, in this unprecedented format for dialogue between all the region's countries. They will be once again meeting very soon to work on specific projects to meet the clear need for cooperation between these countries. As for Israel and Palestine, we will continue as well our efforts for peace that guarantees to each state and people, that guarantees to each people a state, as well as secure, recognized borders based on the 1967 lines with East Jerusalem as the capital. the two-state solution is the only possible path forward for lasting and just peace. In a changing environment, the UN must also adapt, and France supports the ambitious reform agenda of the Secretary-General of the United Nations and contributes actively to the work on the Summit for the Future for next year. We must also find the momentum of Security Council reform. I'm speaking of an expansion, of course, of the Council. For a long time, we've supported greater African representation, including among permanent members, as well as the candidacy of the G4. I'm also speaking about regulating the right to veto in the case of mass atrocities. This would allow it to regain effectiveness within the Security Council. President, ladies and gentlemen, France, in line with its traditions, will be present so that we can come together, the United Nations, to address global challenges and threats to international peace and security, as well as attacks on our common principles. To this end, SG Guterres can count on the unwavering support of France. We must act now together for the salvation of us all. Thank you.
I thank the Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs of France.